Hi everyone, welcome back to another little painting traditional video. Today I thought we'd have a simple look at skies, and this is for anybody that's joined recently and that is new to watercolour. What I thought I'd do is I'd do 4 identical scenes. I've divided the paper into 4 pieces, 4 squares, rectangles, sorry, and I've drawn out the same scene 4 times. And now for each scene I'm going to do a different type of sky. Okay, so like I say, this will be a good video for those more experienced, and for those that are just starting out, this is going to be really useful. And we'll see what sort of skies we do as we go along. But first of all, I'm going to start off with a nice cloudy sky. The sort of cloud you get where the cloud appears to have a silver lining. Yeah, and we'll have the light source coming from the same direction in each painting, which is going to be down, pointing down this way. That's where the light is going to be coming from, and we'll just see how we go. For first, we're going to be starting off with a misty sky, with a sunny sky, and for that I'm going to be using cerulean blue, which is, can you see my point? You can't see it that way because I've lowered my camera so you get a good view of the shot. So I've got some cerulean blue, and I'm going to use some cobalt blue. Just keep it nice and simple. Mix those two together. You could just use either of them on their own. You don't have to use them together. What the first thing we'll do is we'll just use the mister bottle just to give the page a little bit of a mist, just to soften the edges of the sky. Then I'm going to get my brush. I'll load my brush with paint. You can see I'm just running my brush in the paint, giving it a little twirl, so that's well loaded with paint. Then I'm just going to use the side of my brush to paint in the clouds. We're going to keep this quite simple. So I'm just dragging my brush down the page, you can see, and I'm getting a nice broken edge just as you would on these clouds. And we're just going to pop them in like this. And there we have our clouds. And that basically is our bank of clouds that are going to run down towards the horizon. Okay. Now, in places I want to soften those clouds. I don't want to have it look like it's a cut out piece. So I've just wet my brush, I've rinsed my brush, and now I'm just going to go back into the paint, and in places I'm just letting the brush touch the paint and soften slightly in places. Not everywhere, not too much, just where you think it would benefit from it best. Just create a couple of soft edges. If you think it's bleeding too much, you can always go back and lift a little bit of the paint out as it runs. But that's all I'm going to do. We'll just let that dry and then we'll do the next stage. Okay, then now we're ready to move on to the next stage. Now we're going to put the shadow on the cloud. I'm going to do this very simply, just by using a mix of cobalt blue and burnt umber. There we go. So we get a nice warm grey colour. I've also got a little pool of colour mixed here, which is cobalt blue and alizarin crimson. And it's like about 50-50, I think. Well, maybe 75-25. In favour of cobalt blue. So the bulk of the colour that in that mix there is cobalt blue, with just 25% of it approximately alizarin crimson, because alizarin crimson is a very, very strong colour, very staining, I think, and strong. Anyway, I might not use that, but I just want it there in case I want it, in case I need it. So I'm just going to spray my page again. It's dry, but I'm just going to give it a little spray, and then I'm going to go straight in to start applying some shadow to the cloud. I'm just going to start at the bottom. I'm just going to work my way up, flick my way up. I want to keep a nice broken edge at the top, but preserving some white around the top of the cloud, not going all the way up to the blue, just in places Now what I might do with this mix of cobalt blue and alizarin crimson is just halfway down at the bottom, just introduce a little bit to the mix, because we're further in the distance and the colours get cooler. The higher they go in the clouds, the slightly warmer they'll appear. And we're just looking at the clouds and we're just flicking our brush over and getting that appearance of broken cloud. And that's all we have to do, really. And that's it. Then I'm going to be putting in the distant hills. Now they're going to be quite blue with a little bit of crimson in them, but they're going to blend into the background. I'm just going to turn the telly down. My partner's watching the telly. A bit noisy. We just do that. So we've got a bit of cobalt blue and a bit of alizarin crimson just for the distant hills. And as we come forward, I'm just going to warm it up a little bit with a bit of raw sienna. Okay, I'm just marking that distant land out, and as I come closer, as colours get closer to you, they become slightly warmer. Now we have our road leading off. Okay, so we're well on to, we painted our clouds in the sky, we painted the blue hill in the distance, we got a little house there which we'll put in a minute, we'll have a tree here, so we've got our little landscape well on the way to being finished. Okay, so now that's dried, we're just going to sketch in the house, remembering the light source. Not that it's a very strong light, it's kind of obscured by clouds, but you know, we'll just have an imaginary light source that's coming in from this direction. So this end of the house, we'll just add a little bit of shadow. And I'm just using the three colours again, with the cobalt blue, alizarin crimson with a little bit of raw sienna, just to grey it out slightly. And it, like I said, it's just an impression. So I'll put a chimney there, and we'll just have a little chimney there. A bit of light coming there, windows. Something like that. Then we will put in our tree, and again I'm just going to use alizarin crimson with cobalt blue and a touch of raw sienna. And I'm just going to put this in just very loosely. It's just an impression for the picture. So always remember to put in your hard and soft edges when you're doing trees, not to have all hard edges or all soft edges. And then I'm just having a combination of three colours, but I'm adding more yellow, more raw sienna to it, just to start putting some little bit of detail in the foreground here, some hedges and stuff, just to create some interest. That will go off into the distance. And down here there's going to be a couple of little trees just to help the roof stand out on the house. and to help to take the viewer's eye down into the painting. Just suggest it. I'll put some then we could just have a little bit of shadow cast by the sun across the road. A bit more detail down here to suggest some foliage. And there we have it. So there we have a little quick sketch of a country scene with a sunny kind of sky, using basically three colours. I used two blues and alizarin crimson and raw sienna. Somebody's at the door, excuse me. Okay, so that gives us some idea of how to paint a simple sky, doesn't it? So it's just paint round the clouds using the side of your brush, paint up, leaving the white area, and then mix raw umber with cobalt blue for the warm grey in the cloud. And it gives you that nice impression of clouds that have got that silver lining around the outside. Always works very well in landscapes. And then we just put a few little things in the foreground to make it look a bit more interesting. But there we go. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, with this next one we'll do exactly the same scene, but we're just going to do a different sky. Then I'm going to start my warmest colours at the top and just let them run down the page. Then I've got my blue. I'm just going to let that maybe a little bit of, as I come down the page, I'm just adding a little bit of alizarin crimson, and when I mix all three colours together I get a nice warm grey, because I'm adding more yellow, more alizarin crimson than I am blue. And we can just allow these colours to run on the page. I can just bring them all the way down to the bottom. Then what I can do, just as that's in a minute, that will start to dry a little bit, just tilting the page so it runs down the page a bit, just to give it a bit more impact. I'm going to mix up a darker mix of those three colours. So I start off with my cerulean blue, and this is going to be the darkest point in the sky. Then I add some raw sienna to the blue. I end up with like a greeny brown colour, and then I'm going to be adding some alizarin crimson to it, and I'm going to be going back to the blue, and I've got myself a nice grey. And that's going to be my darkest point of the clouds that just give it a little bit of... I've got to look at the paper, and what I'm looking for in the paper is just as the sheen on the paper starts to lift, that will be the right time to go in with this wash. If you put it in too soon, it will just bleed out everywhere, and it will lose its... it will just, cover the whole page. Okay, I think that's dry enough now. So we'll just have a little go, and we'll just introduce this darker colour at the top. And just try and add some. So this is what they call wet into wet technique. There we go. You can mix it a little bit thicker again. A little bit of all three colours, and you'll get a nice. You can make it more blue by adding blue, more red by adding the red, or more yellow by adding more yellow than the other colours. There we go. Now we'll just put our distant hill in. Of course, things that are in the distance appear more blue because they're cooler, because they're further away. So we'll make sure we add it in a cool colour. I know it's going to bleed because the paper's still wet, but that's okay. I want it to appear soft. Okay, we'll just add our hedges in and greenery now through here. A little pathway there, or road, whatever. We can then just pick up some blue, leaving a little bit of raw sienna on it. We could put a tree in there. We can have another one here. And one down there. They just help lead your eye into the painting, those trees in the distance. And the same back there. We'll just paint our tree in. Always remember to leave the sky holes, because if your tree looks too solid, and I'm just softening that edge a bit there, just so it looks a bit more natural. I'll go back into the middle of the tree again, just using the same three colours. I'm going to stick with cerulean, alizarin, and raw sienna, and just add a little bit of dark to the centre of the tree. Then we can add some texture to the foreground. Moving down into the distance as they go further away, they get smaller and cooler in colour. And then the cottage, we'll just put a shadow down that side because we're keeping the light source in the same direction. Two little chimneys. Bit of shadow down there. Maybe a bit of shadow from the tree. And there we have it. So that was just basically a sky that was wet into wet using three colours wetting the page first, dropping the a mixture of raw sienna, cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and then mixing the three colours again together but making them slightly thicker and darker for the darker clouds on top. Putting in your hill in the distance but making sure that's a nice cool blue colour to give you the appearance of it being further away. And then always remembering to add a little bit of detail in the foreground to bring things a bit closer. Put some windows in the cottage, and there we go. And you can put just a bit of detail in the cottage if you want to. Just a few things going on in the background. Put a few branches up there in the tree. And for that I'm just using a little rigger brush. Put a few in this one. Just using a little rigger. And then if we wanted to finish it off, we could just put a few little birds in the sky. There we go. Alright, so the next one. I think the next one we're going to do a misty day and have things in having a misty feel to the painting. Okay, for our third painting we're going to do it as it's a misty day, a misty sky, and I'm going to stick with the same colours. I'm going to go cobalt blue. Let you see me mixing them. So what this is going to go over the entire picture, over the entire painting. Cobalt blue, a little bit of raw sienna. Now, these probably aren't the ideal colours for this scene, but I just want to see what we could do by sticking to the same three colours throughout the painting. And a touch of alizarin. A little bit more. There we go. Okay, hopefully I've mixed enough there. Now we're just going to start at the top of the page and work our way down, and we're going for a nice misty look. And basically all this is achieved by is building up layers in your painting. It's not very difficult at all. Just work my way down the page, and I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom. And that's basically the first part of the painting completed. Okay, now that's fully dried with exactly the same colours we had before. Cobalt blue, a touch of alizarin, and a little touch of raw sienna. We've got a bluey grey. I'm just going to put in the next wash, and I'm basically following the hill line that we put in before. I can go over the house, that's fine. What I want to do though is just go back and wet my brush, put some clear water on it, and soften that hill line in places, just so it looks a little bit more misty. Then come back down, leaving the road area, and just sketch it all in like that. A little tree there or something in the background. And we'll just let that dry, and we'll come back and do the next one. Now I'm going to show you another technique now in this painting, and this is about lifting colour out of the paper once it's dried, how we can go about lifting colour out. Because sometimes when you have a foggy day you have the sun up in the top and it's just kind of filtering through the fog. Well, I'd like that effect on this painting, So I'm just going to put clear water on my brush, damp it slightly, and I'm just going to choose where I want my sun to be. I think about here, and I'm just going little circles, and you can just see it's lifting the paint off quite nicely. I don't want a hard circle, I want to sort of fade it out slightly. Lift a little bit, you get like a halo effect, don't you? And that just gives that impression of the sun peeping through that foggy sky. Right, that's that bit done. Okay, so now we want to put our tree in, don't we? That will be the next thing that goes in. And because that's a bit closer to us, it would be a little bit darker. It would look up here a little bit darker, maybe even a little bit warmer as the colours start to appear. So we want to think about that. So I'm warming it up a bit, and I'm also, that's the sort of mix I'm going for. It's a slightly warmer version. And I'm just going to sketch my tree in. I want to make sure I got some soft edges on that tree, not all hard edges. So I'm just using the side of the brush to roughly put in where the tree is. Lots of lost and found edges because it's a misty day, a foggy day. And we can also just put in the side of the house, we'd see that. It would be again the same, similar colours. Have the little chimneys on there. We've just got the light hitting the roof. We've got some little trees up at the back here. They're a bit closer, so they're showing through. We can just soften some of the edges, so it's clear water on the brush, and just soften some of the edges again, just so it looks a little bit more natural. And then as we come right to the foreground, I'm going to add even more raw sienna, so I end up with a very warm grey and my darkest colours. There we go, see, that's my darkest mix now. Still the same three colours, but this is going to be for the hedgerow. And as it goes off into the distance, I will just soften those colours with a bit of water. Just soften them. The most important part is to have them in the foreground, and the same on the other side. Just using your brush to describe the colours, but as they move away from you they get fainter and fainter off into the distance. We had a few trees back here, didn't we? And we can just soften those a bit around the cottage. And there we have our very simple way we can paint a foggy day, or misty morning, or whatever you want to call it. And as you get more experienced in doing that type of painting, you can add more colours to it. But just to start off with, that gives you that impression of a misty morning. Now we're on to our last one for this demonstration. I thought we'd go for like a early evening sort of sunsetty sky. Okay, so we've done a blue one, we've done a wet into the wet, we've done a misty one. We might as well end up with a sunset. Kind of round it all off. I splashed some water on there earlier, so we've got a bit of a mark there. Can't do much about that. Okay, so basically for this I'm gonna change my colours a bit. I'm gonna use Windsor yellow, cadmium red, and cobalt blue. So I'll stick with three colours, but we'll use those three. So I'll just start with my yellow across the sky. I haven't wet the page this time. Don't feel there's a need. Just going to get some red And I'm going to put more red in, and I'm going to add some cobalt blue. So I get like a violety purple, I don't know what you call it, a really deep purple. Yeah, deep purple. And I'm going to come across here with that. And then I'm going to turn it more red as I get towards where I want the sunset to be. And I'm not following any pictures for this, it's just like made up, so please bear with me. Then the hill's going to be a nice blue colour, so I'm just almost adding neat cobalt blue now into the mix for where the hill is. So I want to go around the roof of my house quite carefully. Okay, and then above that red I want to put more blue. I want it to become more blue. I don't mind it running into the red. So I'm just mixing more cobalt blue up with a touch of red in it. That's for the last bit of the sky. And then I've got my colours down here, down by the road. So I'm just adding for that, I'm just adding Windsor yellow into the red and the blue. So I get a nice deep, rich grey green. And if you do your colour mixing exercises, all this will come quite easily after a bit of practice. That's my colour mix I'm using here, just sort of adding blue, taking out colours. Just messing around really. Very good lessons for beginners. They're very good lessons for anyone. I wouldn't just say beginners, because I still get a lot of value out of these sorts of things myself. And for the track, I'm just going to run my brush over it like that. Top of the roof. We'll come back into the cottage in a minute and we'll make something more of that. Okay. We'll just let that dry and then we'll come back to it. Okay then, now with a mix of all three colours again, that's the cobalt blue, cadmium red and Windsor yellow, not cadmium yellow. We're just going to put the tree in. Just roughly. And as I get towards the centre of the tree, I feel it's going to be cooler, but you're going to lose it down here a little bit. There we go. And we can pick any detail out here we want, as much as we can. And basically this is just cobalt blue, cadmium red and a little bit yellow again to make a nice dark for some information here, just, you know, make it look a bit more interesting. We don't want to forget to do the side of the cottage. Excuse me. Just blend that in. Kind of lost the cottage a bit, but I think you get the idea. Just mute down the roof a bit. And there we have it, really. Our little sunset sky. Okay, then we'll just have a little recap to finish. We started with the blue sky, and that was just using cerulean blue and cobalt blue for the sky there, the blue area. Then it was cobalt blue and burnt umber for the dark clouds there, with a little bit of alizarin crimson added at the bottom. Again with blue hills, and it was using the side of the brush throughout just to add the texture. Very simple little sky. Here we had a wet into wet sky where we wet the sky area here, and we just dropped all the colours in to build up that little impression of a landscape. We've kept all the colours very simple, so we get that feeling of harmony in the painting. We don't see colours that we just know don't belong there jumping in, because we're comfortable with the three colours we're using. We're mixing with just those three colours. You get a much more harmonious feel to your painting. Then we moved on to our little misty scene down here. Just by layering the colours and warming them up as we come forward, we ended up with this nice little impression of a misty morning or a misty day, whatever. And then we had a quick bash at a sunset, and we've just sort of got the intense brightness of the yellow down here with red. Again, we used Windsor yellow. Again, we varied the colours slightly here. Sorry, we used Windsor yellow, cadmium red, and cobalt blue, and we mixed up all those colours just from those three, and we created a little sunset. So it's really worth having a go at this. You know, stick with the same little picture each time, but just change the conditions, what you're doing, and it will allow you to concentrate just on the actual painting of that instead of worrying about the composition and everything. But yeah, really good exercise, and I hope you get some value out of it. And if you find it interesting, or you're stuck on something, or don't understand something, or don't like something, come to the forum. You can ask questions. Myself or other artists there will help you, hopefully sort of answer any questions. A lot of the replies I've seen by the other artists there have been really useful and really informative. So, you know, there's always someone there to help you out. That's it really. So have a go at the exercise, and I hope you get along with it okay, and I look forward to seeing your work in the forum. Thanks for watching.